Now, call me a little bit of a swim geek, but we're going to now look at some numbers which are going to really help you with your swimming. If you've been following what we do here at Swim Smooth for quite a while, you know that we're quite keen on CSS training, that is critical swim speed, identifying where your threshold pace is at. Basically, your threshold pace is what you can maintain for 1500 meters. But we can do a little test involving a 200 meter time trial and a 400 meter time trial to accurately calculate what you should be able to hold over 1500 meters. The advantage of doing these two time trials is A, you don't have to do a long 1500 meter time trial every 4 to 6 weeks, which, let's face it, not a lot of us like to do. And B, it allows us to look at the rate of drop off between a distance like 200 meters, which really looks at how anaerobically efficient you are in the water, what your sprintability is like, and the 400 meters, which looks at a little bit more how aerobically efficient you are, what you're like at sustaining pace over a longer distance. Let's look at this on a graph now. Just on the graph here, we can see two swimmers. Let's draw in the first swimmer here. The first swimmer, his or her 200 meter time is very quick. They're very fast over 200 meters. They're likely to be, of course, even faster over 50 meters, probably even off the chart here. The second swimmer, let's draw him or her in red, is not quite so fast over 200 meters, and equally not quite so fast over 50 meters. But interestingly enough, these two swimmers have exactly the same time for 400 meters. Just there, like so. Now, the way this calculation works is if we draw these lines on, the rate of drop-off for the steadier swimmer over 200 meters, this might be a distance freestyler, compared to the faster swimmer, is that the sprinter, indicated here by the black line, has quite a great drop-off between the 50 and the 200 and then the 200 to the 400. So we would expect that rate of drop-off to continue all the way over here to the 1500 meters. This simply has to be the case, otherwise the world's best freestyle sprinters would also be the world's best distance freestylers, and of course that just doesn't happen. So going back to our two athletes here, if these two athletes were in a squad, you've maybe even seen this yourself if you've tried the CSS test before, these two swimmers have the same 400 meter time, but the red line swimmer has a slower 200 meter time than the black line swimmer here, the sprinter. Now, when you look at this rate of drop-off between the two here, it's easy to add the times for the 200 and 400 together and just assume that the black line swimmer would be faster over all distances. But they're not. The rate of drop-off is so much smaller for the red swimmer that we continue to predict that over 1500 meters they'll be able to maintain their speed significantly better. The black line swimmer, of course, drops off quite a bit more. So if you have seen that in the squad, if you've tested yourself or you and your mate, one of you is significantly better over 200 meters than the other over 400 meters, it's worthwhile having a go over 1500 meters and seeing how this prediction really does come to the fore. Now let's look at the second graph. In their fantastic book, Swim, Bike, Run, the Brownlee brothers from the UK, Olympic gold medalist Alistair Brownlee and Olympic bronze medalist Jonathan Brownlee over the triathlon discipline, talk about how they've noticed 3 different types of athletes in triathlon swimming. And for triathlon swimming, we can also put in there open water swimming as well, or any distance freestyle event. If we look at the chart here, we've also got speed on the y-axis here. And then on the horizontal axis here, we have our 3 athletes. Athlete A, Athlete B, Athlete C. As we can see here, over a short distance, let's say we're looking at sprintability over 50 meters, Athlete A is clearly the winner, significantly faster than Athlete B, and a good bit faster than Athlete C over here. Now, if these 3 athletes were put into a race, you'd probably assume that Athlete A was going to come out on top, certainly over Athlete B. But now let's look at something that this first chart shows us here, their threshold pace relative to their maximum speed. And this is where it starts to get a little bit interesting in terms of the type of training that you need to be doing. Now, athlete A is very good at sprinting, but his threshold speed, what he can maintain over 1500 meters, is relatively low. In fact, it's almost the same as athlete B. So again, looking at those two swimmers, even though you would automatically assume that athlete A was the better swimmer, the reality is over distances over 400 meters and plus, the two swimmers end up performing remarkably similar. Let's look at athlete C over here. Now, the Brownlee brothers describe themselves as being athlete C. This athlete has a pretty good maximum speed. Certainly when you've seen them racing on TV, it looks like they're sprinting along the whole time. But the magic in their ability and the magic in what you need to be doing with your CSS training is if we look at their threshold pace, as a percentage of their maximum speed, they're sitting at a very, very high level indeed. So when you see them racing over 2 hours in Olympic distance triathlon, be assured that they are close, very, very close to their maximum speed, just a little bit below that. And of course, between those three athletes, over events lasting longer than 5 or 8 minutes, which of course a triathlon is significantly longer than that, athlete C will really come to the fore. So looking at these two charts then, the question we've got to ask ourselves when utilising the SwimSmooth coaching system is which of those three athletes you are, or more simply, if you've done the 200 and 400 CSS test, looking at the rate of drop-off between the two. If you are somebody who is very, very quick over the shorter distances, 50 and 200, but find you really struggle over the longer distances, the absolute last thing you want to be doing on a regular basis is lots of sprint-based training. Short 50s, lots of rest and recovery. Don't get me wrong, you're going to love that type of training because that's really working to your strengths. But what that'll actually be doing is it'll be separating your threshold pace and your maximum speed even further. What you need to be doing is we need to be trying to raise the level of this red line up towards your max, like athlete C here, and the only way you're going to be able to reliably and successfully do that is by working on CSS-based training. So the way we do that, we get our calculation, we look at the rate of drop-off between your 200 and your 400. Let's say that we work this out. I've got a little tempo trainer here. We're going to put it to mode 1. Now we have here a time of 23.75 seconds. That equates to a pace of 135 per 100 meters. If this works out as your threshold pace, all you need to do, pop the beeper underneath your swimming cap, set off for something like a set of 10 times 200 meters, and simply ensure that you're going through each 25 meter marker every time the beep goes. If you do that, you can be assured that you're sitting at threshold pace, and if you're doing that once or twice per week, you'll start to nudge that red line up towards your maximum. Equally, if you're starting to approach the likes of athlete C, first off, well done, that's very, very good going. But athlete C here would obviously benefit from just trying to take their sprint speed up even higher and continuing to push that threshold pace up. But really, if you're an athlete racing of anything over 400 meters and above, the key determinant of how well you're going to perform is this red line, your threshold level. And to do that, you need to take the test over 400 and 200, work out what your current threshold pace is, use the tempo trainer to move yourself forwards, and you'll be finding that over 4 or 5 weeks of trying this, you'll really start to improve your distances over those longer distances.